When is a data model not a data model? Well, it's when you use it to focus on, well, all sorts of things. Look, we'll delve into it a little bit deeper in this week's episode of the Data Radio Show. Hello there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Data Radio Show. We're going to be sitting down and having a chat to Kim Johnsson, who's from DSharp, a company that focuses on data modeling as one of their big, things, really, because they believe vehemently that data modeling isn't just about making sure you put the right things in the right places, but is a tool that you can use to ensure you do things the right way the first time. It's the data management equivalent of measuring twice and cutting once. So Sam's going to sit down and have a chat to Kim very soon. But before then, make sure that you hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Get the word out, tell everybody about what's going on. It's always great to have people following us along on their data journeys. All right, let's jump over to that interview now between Kim and Sam.
So hello and welcome listeners and viewers. My name's Sam Williams and I'm joined by Kim Johnsson from DSharp in Finland. What part of Finland are you talking to us from, Kim?
I am talking to you from Turku. That's in southern Finland.
Okay.
100 kilometers from Helsinki.
And I believe it used to be the capital, or is...
Oh, a long time ago, yeah.
Right.
Before it moved to Helsinki.
Before,
I don't remember. Such a long time ago.
Before you were invaded, I believe. Something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So Kim joins us from DSharp, which is a data automation platform. Maybe for listeners and viewers to get a little bit of a sense of DSharp and your background, Kim, can you give us a 30-second intro to yourself and a little bit of an elevator pitch for DSharp?
Okay, myself, I'm a modeling kind of guy, so computer science is my background. And I wrote my thesis on object modeling technique, which then evolved into UML. And I've always been a fan of modeling first and then implementing the model in whatever way it needs to be implemented. And that's, of course, how our tool works as well. And I was more or less against my will thrown into this world of BI maybe 25 years ago. And my first assignment was to test a third-party data warehouse solution on behalf of our customer. And after that, I've been doing architect stuff and implementing basically every possible aspect of the BI world. And as far as the tool goes, DSharp Studio, that is a heavily model-oriented tool where we work on model level. So we have this kind of light UML model that we design, and then we generate the entire data vault solution out of that. So we don't even think about tables. We don't think about hubs and satellites. We think about the things that exist in the business, and we describe how those behave, and from that we get the implementation.
Excellent. And I guess on that journey to sort of conceiving DSharp Studio, what were some of the things that you came across with data professionals that led you down this path? What were some of the pain points that you encountered?
The biggest pain point for me personally, having had this background of a software developer, was that there was absolutely no reusability in data warehouse projects. Nothing. And I had learned that if you write some code, it should be reusable. But what I noticed in these data warehouse projects was that you did the same thing every time. I mean, the only thing that was different was the data. But you performed the same manual tasks each time. I mean, it didn't matter if you had loaded person data or organization data in some previous project. You couldn't use that implementation. You had to do it all over again. So that was maybe for me the biggest pain. pain,
And
which of course led to this idea that you could automate this mechanical work.
right. And was there a specific moment, client, scenario, or aha moment when you went, there's a better way of doing this?
Well, almost. Well, basically, when I started to work on my own data warehouses, I always, when it was a new project, I introduced modeling to it. So in the role of architect, we used this modeling approach. We modeled the things that we wanted to have in the database, and then of course in those days the implementation was manual. But we of course had this discussion that how should we implement this model, and there was a number of ways you could do it. For example, we could have history, we could have no history, we could have different implementations of history. We could have only one table for each class, or we could have the history in separate tables. And these design decisions and actually all of these details that described the behavior of the data or the behavior of the class itself would be something that the implementation would need to know about. So these became things that were then parameters in our models. And then it kind of occurred to me that the reusable thing that we could actually achieve is the know-how of the guy doing this loading of the table. So if you know how to load a table, and there are specific circumstances that make you do it this way or the other way, if you know all the circumstances and you know what the source data is and where it goes, then that is something that you can tell somebody how to do, and then he does it. So we came up with the slogan: if you can tell somebody how to do it, you can automate it. And then that's the thing that we kind of live by. So then we just wrote this algorithm that did what the person would do given the input that he needed, and the model and mappings provided that input. So it was kind of a natural thing to do, because our first implementations were manual, and we did some design decisions and implemented those by hand, but later, of course, automation.
Okay. And
That's it.
from a management standpoint, what are some of the things that you've encountered around the use of, let's say, Data Vault, that are challenges for the managers of the teams and actually enabling collaboration across teams in terms of building data warehouses?
Well, I mean, of course, the skill and resource management. You have these juniors and you have these senior developers, and they have different skill sets and how to best make use of that. And then also we've seen a lot of this, that when customers want to, they have an older solution done in something else than Data Vault when they want to migrate. So that takes a lot of effort and energy. Those would be the main things that I've encountered.
Okay.
Of course, the general managing of development and ways of working and so on.
Yeah, I guess have you seen an increase in demand for data products across enterprises, and are managers actually struggling to deliver in a timely fashion? For instance, like time to value, I
Yeah,
imagine is a pretty big issue.
yeah, that's actually one large issue. This kind of this risk for lack of commitment from the customer side. That's one thing, because I mean everybody's so busy, so they don't have the time to provide you with the data in order for it to enter the design phase even. So I mean the largest what do you call it? lags have come from those kinds of situations where people just don't have the time. And since it's the customer organization, there's really not much we can do about it, or the
So,
team
so
manager.
right. So go into a little bit of detail about how the DSharp Studio um, uh, helps alleviate some of these challenges or pain points.
Well, first of all, this fact that we are not designing a data vault with a tool. We are designing a light UML object model. So we have this person class instead of person hub and a load of satellites. There is less to do. I mean, there's physically less items that you need to put inside your model. And also what we do in the tool is that we describe how this thing works. We don't describe how we want to implement it. That implementation logic is then derived from the way it's described to work. So, for example, if we have this person class, the person has certain attribute, there will be person ID, last name, first name, date of birth, and so on. And person itself is a certain kind of object. It behaves in a certain way, no matter what the source is. And let's say from the process of life, we know that date of birth behaves in such a way that the day that you are born, that date will be registered as your date of birth. And you're not born again, at least not in such a way that you need to change that date. So it behaves in a certain way. And that behavior is totally detached from whatever implementation it may have. So from the same model, we can implement basically inman kind of structures, data vault structures, even user interfaces that draw from this description of the behavior. The behavior doesn't change just because I get more sources, and I don't have to change my model just because I get more sources. It's just a question of mapping a new source to the existing elements in the model. So what that means from the manager and also of course this developer point of view, they don't actually even need to know about data vault in order to be able to implement and use a data vault using this tool. It all happens in the background, and it's kind of abstracted away in the user interface. There are no items in the user interface that are specifically data vault. It's just a description of things and how they behave. So it's kind of working on a higher level of abstraction and all the good that comes from that.
So does it enable you to focus more on business outcomes as opposed to the building of the warehouse?
Definitely. I mean, it generates 100% of the solution. And we like, I mean, you can use it in a data driven way. So you can take this connection to a database and just drag the tables there. That will generate a model of those tables, and then you just fill in the details, and you generate the data vault solution from that. So technically you can do this kind of work, but what we prefer is that you're working top down from requirements. You have the customer has identified some kind of need, and you work downwards from that. So you have these workshops where you actually design this conceptual model. You decide which classes are of interest and what attributes they need to have and what other classes they relate to. And also the terminology used when modeling is that of the customer. So the end result, the model is a non-technical description of the phenomena that exist in the business. So we want to be business driven. And then what you do to get the solution done is you just map source data to those classes that you have designed, and the rest happens.
Are there any notable use cases that you can either talk about specifically or in an abstract way?
Yeah, I had to ask around about this. We had this proof of concept project. It lasted for 2 sprints. Now I have to check my notes so that this goes right. 2 2-week sprints, one consultant working on it, 50% of his time, so 1 week, and 10 days actually, so half of 2 week sprints. So in 10 days he had these workshops, he designed the model, he mapped the data, deployed the solution, loaded the data, did quality check, documented everything. And the end result was a model containing 332 classes divided into 40 submodels. And that's quite productive. So, and the class would be say, person, customer, and different types of events and time periods, whatever you have in those in that project. I'm not familiar with the details, but
Well,
definitely.
that's okay. And are there any notable clients? I imagine you have quite a strong footprint in Finland itself.
Yeah, we've been doing this automation since 2009. So we have a couple of customers, but actually the biggest ones, I would say that the public sector as a whole is very strong with us, and occasional industry customers as well. But mainly the public sector. So cities and healthcare kind of customers mostly. Uh, but they are the customers of our partners that use our tool. So there's
I'm,
that distinction.
I imagine it's quite a useful tool for consultants. Like, so do you have partnerships where consultants actually uh, leverage the modeling tool?
Yeah, yes, we do, and we also have this pure modeling edition where you only can do this modeling. So a typical scenario would be that you have a couple of customers, consultants that model their own part of the business, and then this is then collected and given to the guys who implement it. So they would have this full capability license that then does this generating thing and provides implementable objects and installable
And
products.
are there any notable ways in which you stand out compared to other automation platforms? And I can probably guess what your answer will be, but why don't I say?
You would probably guess right. I mean, I am such a fan of this model-based approach, and the fact that you don't have to deal with so many details when you're designing things. That you describe the thing once, and then you just attach data to it, and you're done. I mean, it could get a bit simpler than that, but not much. And also this that it makes sense to also automate all those small tasks that you do several times a day, even though they may not take that long to do every time. But if you do them several times a day, it makes sense to just to push the button. For example, I mean, writing a SQL select clause or a select statement with say 10 or 20 joins, that's going to take some time. But you could just as easily just select a class from the model and bring up a pop-up menu and then serve the associations in the model. And once you get where you want to go, you press the button and you get this long select statement with all the joins in place. So I mean, these kinds of small things.
Right. I guess I have to ask this question, but with the advent of generative AI and how it's starting to impact data engineering from both a data management perspective and some of the uh, language models that data is now having to interact with, are there any particular aspects of what DSharp Studio does that's advantageous in relation to AI?
Definitely. We actually had this first, when ChatGPT came out, we immediately integrated it. But we have hidden it. After that, it didn't get much use, but we're getting back to that. But we have this what we call quick input. So it's a text input interface where we can use a simple syntax to build the entire model. So we just we have a say let's write P space person and then list attributes and data types. So that would create the person class with those attributes. And we can just give, say, ChatGPT a user story or a description of the business and say that, could you please return the answer in the format of this our quick input. And then we just copy and paste the result in this quick input window. And we get the entire model. We did this yesterday, the last time. So that's extremely handy. And even though the model may not be final, it's a good starting point. And we had some customers over yesterday, and we showed this, and immediately there was discussion about the model, and that means it does something. So that's a huge thing, and of course we will integrate that tighter so that you just can write your story and press the button and you get the model. So that's one obvious way to use it. And then there's this collaboration with Flow BI, where we can give them access to the data, and they will return their insights on what the key is, what classes we should create in our model, and what attributes they have, and so on. So a lot of interesting things going on.
Okay.
And on that.
Thinking about, you have public sector clients. What's the sentiment amongst those government departments in relation to starting to use more AI-based tools? Are they particularly risk averse? Do you see any risks in, like, from what you're describing, it doesn't sound like there are likely to be any great risks around the use of a language model or a neural network to be able to perform some of the tasks that there are there. But are you getting any pushback from clients?
Well, the only pushback I've actually heard is that what AI produces may be not of the highest quality. So I mean, you still have to work with it. It's not a be all end all solution. But it's a good sparring tool, and so on. So, but I haven't heard any about any great pushback that would
Okay.
make it unusable.
So from from the point of view of building a data model, DSharp Studio has significant advantages. What about from an ongoing operational standpoint and maintaining a data warehouse? Are there any aspects to your approach that simplify or improve the efficiency of the day-to-day running of a data pipeline and a data warehouse, data ecosystem?
If we have this solution that's generated from our model, it's really easy to make changes. Of course, you have the changes that only expand on existing structures, so those will never break anything. But if you make structural changes for whatever reason, you delete attributes from a class, you move them to some other place, that's also something that the deployment package is very gentle. It never deletes anything from the data warehouse. So you can always get stuff back if you regret your choice. And I think the only case where you would actually need to be a bit careful if you change the type of key. Let's say you have had a non-business key, you change it to a business key, or the other way around. That changes a link to a hub, so to speak. The class will be represented by another type of table. So there you might need to be a bit careful. But other than that, doing basically any kinds of changes, you just select the class that you have changed, build the deployment package, and off you go.
Okay.
So it's really easy to maintain.
And so, like, this is my last question for you. So, from the point of view of a non-Data Vault user organization, so let's say philosophically they use a data mesh approach. Does it matter that your client is a Data Vault user, or in other words, are you methodology agnostic in your approach, or does it not even matter? Like, you can enable a non-Data Vault organization to actually start to deploy Data Vaults.
Yes, we could most definitely do that. And earlier versions, we actually also could. I'll backtrack a bit. In the early days, the first automation choices we had, where we could use this Inman structure and a couple of variants of how history was implemented. And then we got this 2009. We had this Data Vault support, and then once we added the Data Vault support, nobody ever chose Inman again. So it kind of came and it conquered. But theoretically, we could generate anything on top of anything else. We're not just there yet, but basically the model itself is totally agnostic about its implementation. So the building blocks are there, but currently we generate Data Vault solutions only, but of course for different platforms. I don't know if that actually answered your question.
Well, yes, it does. I mean, I guess one of the things about Data Vault as a methodology and approach is it comes with a certain overhead, especially if so a resource requirement in terms of your people. I'm not talking about the system side of things. And you have to sort of maintain a certain level of institutional knowledge about how your data vaults or your data warehouses are structured. And I guess what I'm picking up on here is that because you're agnostic, so to speak, there's less overhead required to maintain a Data Vault methodology approach in a given organization. Is that a fair point?
That's exactly the case. And I don't remember if I mentioned it already, but what we also do, so we generate, of course, this Data Vault structure, but we also generate this layer of views on top of that. So to access the data in the Data Vault, you don't need the Data Vault structure. You get everything published in this view that looks exactly like the class in the conceptual model. So we make the data look like the model once it's loaded into the Data Vault structure. No matter how many tables person is stored in, you only see this person view, or you only need that person view to access it. So that also lowers the threshold for people being able to to use the data vault or the data in the data vault.
Perfect. I think that certainly covers the questions that I had to ask you, Kim. Is there anything that you'd like to add from is there one thing that people should take away from this conversation?
Well, my first reaction to that was that our developers love to use our tool. I mean, that of course makes me happy, simply because it is so simple. You just describe the things that you want to have in the data vault, how they relate to other things that you want to have there, and how they behave, and the implementation details. You really don't have to even think about them. I've had developers come to me and said that in the early days when they were starting out with this tool, they always checked what kind of structure it generated. They always checked the SQL loading code to see if it works, but they don't do that anymore. They model, they map, they press play, and they deploy. So it has gained their trust, and that's of course the way it should be.
Excellent. It sounded like there was one more thing, but that's okay if there isn't.
No, I think that's pretty much sums it up.
All right, perfect. So, Kim, thank you so much for your time, and appreciate you explaining how the DSharp Studio works and its genesis. Look forward to having more conversations and activities as part of the Data Innovators community.
Yes, brilliant. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks once again to Kim and Sam for joining us this week on the Data Radio Show. And if you haven't done so already, make sure that you're giving us a follow so you can get updates as they come out. Don't forget as well, you can sign up for free to the Data Pro newsletter or head over to the Data Innovators Exchange, which is our community that we've got that lets you talk to other experts within the field of data management and learn a little bit from them directly. Until next time, make sure you have a fantastic week. Live long, prosper, be one with the force and all the rest of it. I will catch you guys all next time.